Welcome to the Tao of Pizza, where we feature top logistics leaders, entrepreneurs, and supply chain innovators and share their inspiring stories with a holistic twist.
Mark Hiddleson here, host of the Tao of Pizza podcast, where I talk with top industry innovators in the warehousing, logistics, and supply chain business with a holistic twist. Before I introduce today's guest, author Lenore Hirsch, this episode is brought to you by Specialized Storage Solutions. Now, listen, I've been in the logistics and storage industry for several decades, and it's still hard for me to believe, but it's true. We provide industry-leading warehouse storage solutions nationwide. So basically, if you have a warehouse that needs rack, shelving, carts, conveyors, or mezzanines, we help with the design, engineering, installation, inspections, and repairs to help our clients optimize their logistics operations. Lenore is funny. Sometimes people don't even realize we can actually help with the permit acquisition services. We take a holistic look at your entire business supply chain ecosystem to develop the resources for continually improving your operation. To learn more, visit specialracks.com or give us a call at 707-732-3892. And I even give out my personal email address for podcast listeners. So email me at markhiddleson@aol.com if you're ready to take your warehouse storage and retrieval systems to the next level. And I want to give one more shout out to Yvonne Sams. She was an awesome guest a few weeks back. She shared her remarkable story and some true supply chain transformation examples on a very large scale. But today, we're joined by Lenore Hirsch. Lenore is a retired educator who writes poetry, essays, and fiction. Lenore was instrumental in founding the Napa Valley branch of the California Writers Club. She's written a column and features for the Napa Valley Register, a doggy blog called My Leash on Life, a restaurant blog, Lunch Encounter, poetry, and travel pieces. She's been published in Napa Valley Life, UU World, and various journals and anthologies. Her books include My Leash on Life, Leavings, Laugh and Live, Advice for Aging Boomers, Schooled, Confessions of a Rookie Vice Principal, and Connection, Stories. She lives in Napa Valley with her canine buddy, Chewy. Lenore, welcome to the Tao Pizza. Oh, there's Chewy. Hey, Chewy.
Chewy always seems to know when my attention is captured somewhere else.
Isn't that awesome?
So hopefully he'll behave himself.
And kids are born with that knack too, I think.
Yes. Pay attention to me, Mom.
Yeah. Well, he looks like he appreciated the attention, and he's knows how to behave too. So that's awesome. So Lenore, share a little bit about your background, and have you always lived in Napa? I always love to hear.
No, this is a hard question for me to answer, so I'll give you the quick rundown. I was born in Connecticut, spent my first 10 years outside of Boston, Massachusetts. Then my dad had his midlife crisis, and we went to Indiana for 2 years, 2 different towns. Then back to New York, where I went to high school in Queens. And then I did college in Albany, New York, Amherst, Massachusetts, moved to California, then back to Chicago for grad school. And I've basically been in the Bay Area since 1969, when I was just a child.
You know what? I arrived in the Bay Area in 1969 too. We have that in common at a little hospital called Alta Bates in Berkeley.
Oh, how interesting.
And that's where I arrived on the planet. And it's funny, whenever I talk to somebody, I love your story because I've never lived like more than 50 or 60 miles from Berkeley. I've lived in the Central Valley, Stockton, Modesto, Ripon is where I went to school. And I went to college in Sacramento. I moved here. I've been here for 26 years. But what's interesting, I haven't gone very far away, but those are like 3 major different cultures. Like the Central Valley is like the Midwest. I mean,
and I did a lot of moving around in the Bay Area so I started out, well, no, I didn't start out as a teacher, but once I became a teacher, then I kept jumping around to different jobs, and then I became an administrator. So I've lived in San Francisco, and not in this order: San Francisco, Albany, Castro Valley, Danville, Fremont. What did I leave out? Maybe that's it. Before and Novato in Marin County before I came to Napa in 1992.
Awesome. So I came here in 98. So about a similar background, but I always feel like a newcomer because seems like every time I talk to somebody in Napa, they're second or third generation. People ask me, have you been here for a long time? And I'm like, relatively not, only
Yeah.
about half my life.
Well,
So
but Napa has changed a lot, even in the time that you have been here. So the old timers really have they can talk about prune orchards. Um, yeah. And it's still changing,
it
maybe too
is.
much. I don't know.
It is. It is. I love living here, and it is interesting to see. I mean, the downtown has been, uh, completely revitalized, but it's not the same. Like we met at Norman Rose Tavern. I love it because it's such a cool. There's so many cool places. We have to give a shout out
Yeah.
to Norman Rose. Um, but before we get into, I was going to ask you about some other places where, like the Jessup Gallery. But share a little bit about the one that makes me giggle is School Confessions of a Rookie Vice Principal. My daughter wants to get into. She's getting her master's degree in education right now at the University
Oh,
of San
cool.
Diego, and she wants to be a teacher. She wants to work with children, but administration is on her goals. Of 2 to 5 year plan or 5 to 10 year plan. Who knows? So share a little bit. I love the
Sure.
title.
Well, and I have been interviewed and I have written a lot of stuff for people who are interested in being a teacher. And what I always and I always tell them, don't go into teaching because you want to be an administrator and make a lot of money, because you won't survive as a teacher unless you love teaching. Um, so my my I came to it in a strange way because when I was growing up, like when I was in high school, I must have tutored kids. I don't remember how this came about, but people were always telling me, you should be a teacher. You'd be really a good teacher. And I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with being a teacher. Um, and in one of my first jobs, I had my assignment was to create training materials for telephone operators. And in that process, and it was programmed training. Do you remember that stuff?
I,
And I had a lot of fun doing it. And I had like an unlimited budget. I remember saying to my boss, it'd be really great if these pages could be in 3 colors. And she said, okay. Anyway, in the process of doing that job, I got to try out my draft materials on real people and discovered I liked teaching. So a year later, I went back to school to get a master's in teaching so I could do that. And so what can I tell you about that? Yeah, you have to really like kids. You have to be dedicated. It is not an easy job. And you have to, I think the hardest thing for many people, not everyone, some people have the knack naturally to take control. That was not me. So for those of us who might be a little bit intimidated by 30 children staring us down, whether they're 17 or 7, you have to fake it till you make it. Because if the kids, and I had this experience, if the kids sense that you're at all insecure, they will walk all over you. And I had some very unfortunate circumstances where I didn't get the kind of support that I needed as a new teacher. And fortunately, and I've been retired for a while now, but I think California still has this great program that has a name I don't remember, but where brand new teachers are in a special program their first year through the school district and are paired with a mentor. So when then they're having their problems, they have somebody they can talk to and somebody who can help them resolve all those initial insecurities if they have them. Some people are natural. They just walk in and they take over. But you have to be the one who's in charge and do it in a nice way. You
Yeah.
know, you can't being mean does not motivate anyone to learn.
Yeah.
So
And
anyway,
it's a
but for
gift.
people who love kids and are willing to work really hard, it's a very rewarding profession.
Yeah, and Serena is a natural. I mean, she's a natural with kids. She always has been, and she loves it. It wasn't her career idea, but when she was getting her master's degree, she worked with a coach, and they had a list of questions about your passions and how would you score yourself. One of the questions was of Mary Poppins. Rate yourself with Mary Poppins on a 1 to 10, and my daughter was like, "I'm Mary Poppins." So
That's funny.
and that was kind of a no-brainer for her that she's always been passionate about teaching and the taking control. I mean, she's 24. She's been running our house for 23 years. I have two sons too, and my wife. And Serena's always been the ringleader. And my mom was a teacher. My dad was a teacher, so I loved.
Oh,
I
okay.
was really my heart was warm because I think it's the most beautiful, most important, whatever you want to call it, calling, to, and especially young children. She wants to work with second graders, first, second, third grade. And she has such a gift that I'm glad she's not. I mean, I love my attorney and I love psychologists and everything else like that she could have been, but the
Yeah.
teacher is really heartwarming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, you
how
tell
did
her
you,
not to get frustrated if she's got any initial challenges. I mean, the best teachers I have known somehow manage to know what every child in that room needs. And that is a very, very special skill. But so let me tell you how I got into administration. Um, I was hired in my first job. I was hired to teach kids with learning disabilities, even though I had no preparation for that, of course. So I eventually did get the credentials to be a resource specialist and work with kids with learning disabilities, which is a great way to make sure you always will have a job. But a large part of that job is administrative. You know, it's writing individual educational plans, talking to parents, having meetings, uh, testing and analyzing test scores. So after doing that for a number of years, I kind of said, I'm doing so much administrative stuff. Maybe I should take administrative classes. So I did that. And when I went, and when then my first year doing it, maybe this is more than you want to hear about. So tell me to stop if you want me to. But
we
my
want to hear it
first year
all.
doing it, I was hired at this elementary school to teach half the day and be the vice principal the other half the day. So what that meant was I spent half my day dealing with student discipline problems and administrative stuff. And then I would have to go home and correct lessons and write lesson plans. Oh my God, it was so hard. So then I said, well, I might as well be a full time administrator. Anyway, so I worked my way up and eventually got to the point where I felt I had enough experience that I could get a job somewhere I really wanted to live, which was wine country. So that's how I came to Napa.
Awesome. Awesome. I was lucky that I fell in love with somebody who lived here already. And I lived in Sacramento at the time, and it was a toss up. Like, did we moved to Sacramento or Napa? It was pretty
Yeah.
easy decision. So, where did the idea to start writing come from? And then also not really writing, but publishing. I mean, which to me, it's two different. I think we're all writers, but publishing is a different sport.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole thing about there are a whole lot of people who write and write and write, but don't want anyone else to see it. um, so writing since I was young has always been easy for me. And I think in high school, I was on the school literary magazine, wrote some bad poetry. Um, but then, it never occurred to me that that could be like a career. If I were doing it over again, I might look at becoming a journalist or doing something like that. Anyway, so when did I get into, I guess as I approached retirement, um, I started, oh, I had this idea about writing this book from the dog's point of view. And I had been through um, terrible grief with the loss of my husband, and the dog was there for all of that. So I wrote the doggy memoir, My Leash on Life, with the and I made up, where the dog came from. He was a rescue, but I kind of made up a story because he was telling it. But I had the dog tell the story of the few years in our life while my husband was ill and his eventual demise. And of course, from the dog's point of view, he doesn't really understand what's going on. So it's kind of makes it a more palatable story. A friend of mine actually read the book to her fifth grade class and they loved it. And it was very therapeutic for me writing that. And it's a fun little book because dogs have thoughts like, how do they stand on two legs all day long? And I really got into, what is going on to this little guy's head. So that was my
Yeah,
first.
I have the postcard right here.
Yeah.
That how you can see
That's
it.
the first project. That book is now 10 years old. You can still get it on Amazon.
And you'll be able to get it on our show notes. So I want everybody
Oh,
listening to
cool.
know that we have on our website, we put the show notes. So any book we mention or resource, so all your books,
Cool.
they'll be able to buy all your books from the show notes.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And
So
so,
anyway,
and I'm going to buy a copy of that. That's a beautiful story because my dad passed away a little over 2 years ago, and they had a rescue dog. And for my dad, there's things that he wrote like who rescued who, and then my
yeah,
dad shared with me.
yeah.
And then that dog, I have to be careful. I get too emotional. I won't be able to finish the interview. But Bernie just passed away, and my
Oh,
stepmom, my dad asked me to look after. Um, I think she would get a lot out of that book, and that it's a beautiful relationship that the three of them had. That and it's funny, we're not. I had dogs as a kid. My wife and I were really not dog people, but my son was a super dog I mean, he was just like, if my daughter is a child whisperer, he was a dog whisperer from the time he was 5 or 6. Our friend's dog, he would just play with them, he would lay with them, he would sleep with them, he could talk to them. So we did get two labs that we had for close to 15 years. So they're the dog, and we just lost Lady about 3 months ago or 6 months ago. So it's an awesome. I didn't even think. I thought it was cute, and I also think it's a great. How hard is it, or what? How much of a skill is it to see things from a different perspective? And the
yes.
dog, I think, is just a genius because we need to see things from each other's perspective, but from the dogs, it's a great practice. So,
Yeah. And
um,
there are, of course, some great best-selling books out there that are written from the dog's point of view. But I think that like, what is it? Racing in the Rain. That dog knows too much, understands too much about human culture and life. But anyway, so around when I retired, and I guess I did this book after I retired, but I had been working on it. When I retired, I started taking a class here in Napa Valley, a creative writing class that was for seniors. And, just basically started exploring a lot of different things. So I still remember how excited I was when I had written a little, it was just a paragraph. I don't even know what you'd call it, comparing somehow chocolate and disappointment in romance. I don't remember what it was, but and I sent it somewhere and someone published it online and I was like so excited to
nice.
be a published writer. So I took that class for maybe 3, 4 years, like weekly, and that was how I got involved in the California Writers Club. And through the California Writers Club, I got involved in what we call a critique group. I've been in a number of them over the years. I'm currently in a group that meets once a week. And that means you have to have some writing to share and you're going to get feedback on it. And so, for any of your viewers who are interested in writing, or for you, um, getting that feedback, learning how to take feedback is really a very important part of the process if you ever want to be published. And working with being with the same group of people week after week, it has its pluses and minuses because eventually you become friends. And then maybe the feedback becomes a little bit, can become overwhelming, like people telling you, no, don't use this word, use that word. But the idea of, when, especially with fiction, when you're writing a story, you don't really know what the impact is going to be on the other person. Are they going to get what you meant when you said that sentence? And so by sharing with other people, you find out that, oh, they didn't understand that at all. So you need to go back and make a change. Or no, that was obvious. You didn't need to say it that way. Um, so that's having that kind of regular feedback is very, very powerful. And you learn to not be offended when somebody doesn't like what you wrote. And you learn which of your friends' advice you value the most. So that's that. And I have been in a critique group now for of one kind or another for a long, long time. So it keeps me writing. And then, once you have written a bunch of stuff, you start sending it places and people publish it.
Yeah, it's
You
I
don't necessarily make any money, but other people get to read what you wrote.
Yeah, when we met, the night we met, I think it was the day after I had just sent a draft manuscript to an editor, and I was ready for it because I had coaching and I had a lot of people. I never went to the Writers Club meeting. I thought about it because there's an accountability part too because of producing something or weekly is it weekly or every other week that you meet?
It's weekly.
And so there's also for me, I love that accountability piece. And I've always
Yep.
learned in group, like whether you're trying to lose 20 pounds or start a company or start a movement or build anything, it's the group is so powerful to keep you focused, committed, and
Yeah.
creating something that you really probably one of my biggest drawbacks is I tried to do too much of this project on my own. And that was kind of one of my learning lessons. So I love that you started this. I'm going to be involved. I'd love uh, to go to some of those. But so what was it through the adult education that you took the writers class or was it something else?
Um, yeah, so I don't know that this program still exists. It was when it's not the school district, the county, some entity in Napa Valley had free classes for older people.
Yeah,
And the
adult ed.
class was in St. Helena and it met every week. And the teacher got paid, and I should give her a shout out, Anna Manwaring, who is herself a published author, taught this class for years. She may still be teaching it. I haven't been involved for quite a while now. And then at some point, it went off the free thing. And I don't know it may right now be in fact, I think there's a group like that meets at Rianda House in St. Helena. That's still a free thing, I think. So people could check that out if they're interested in that class. Actually, one of my critique group buddies, Brad Shermantine, who is a retired English teacher he taught at Vintage High, is also teaching a class. And I think his is through the Yountville Community Center. And that's another class I think he's doing memoir, but that's another class for people who want to write, to bring what they have and share. There's a lot of that going on in Napa Valley.
What are some other ways well, first I want to ask you, so what about the Writers Club do you think gives the most traction and results?
Um, well, getting into a critique group, is a huge plus, and we try to facilitate that. But I think the most positive feedback that we get from people who come to the Writers Club, I mean, we have a speaker every month, and that can be very valuable. But I think one of the most positive aspects is just networking with other people who are also writing. So, we have people come to our meetings who are grandmas who want to write something for their grandchildren and have no idea how to go about getting started. Um, We have people who have done professional writing but want to do fiction. We have people who have written whole books and don't know what to do with them. So by talking to other people there, you can learn who's an editor who you could use who isn't going to charge you an arm and a leg. Who's a publisher who might be open to looking at what you have? Um, how do you self-publish? You want to put your book up on Amazon. How the heck do you do that?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of knowledge in that group from all the different people's experience about how to learn more. And I think and just talking to other people who are writers is great. One of the things our current president has us doing, which has been very popular, is that every meeting we have like a 10-minute time where we get into small groups and there's a question for people to answer about what they're working on or what a challenge has been. And that helps people get to know each other better. And also people share information that can be very useful.
Yeah. And you might hear, or people have the same fears and everything. You go, oh, I thought I was the only one.
I know. And I got it. The other thing I got to tell you is, and I get such a big kick out of this. Of course, I was in a classroom for a bunch of my life, so I have no problem speaking to a group of people. But there are a lot of people who do beautiful writing and have no idea how to read to a group. And actually, I have seen workshops given on how to do that. But a writers club gives you, well, a critique group as well, gives you an opportunity to practice reading your work. Because one of the most valuable things you can do is, even if you're the only one in the room, is to read it out loud. Because then you hear the stuff that doesn't work.
Yeah.
The words that don't go together because they end up being a tongue twister. And I have coached many people on when you're going to do a reading, how you prepare for that. You don't just take your book and open it up and start reading something. And I'm always amazed at the number of people who may be well published who still do not know how to do a reading. And you want to engage your listeners, which means you might look up from the manuscript once in a while and make eye contact. All that stuff you learn in whatever that group is that helps people be public speakers. I
The
forget.
Toastmasters.
All that kind of stuff you learn in Toastmasters. You have to be able to do that if you want to be a success at reading your work to people who might then buy it.
Yeah. What are some other, I love the eye contact. What do you have any other?
Well, what I tell people, so you mentioned Jessel earlier. So Jessel Salon on Atlas Peak Road in Napa has been for the last, it's probably going on 2 years, has been doing a quarterly writers salon. And I'm involved in the organization of that. And so what I tell, no matter who the people are who we enlist to read, each time we have 4 people and they each get 15 minutes, and then Jessel sells their books. And what I tell them all is that they need to select a passage, because in 15 minutes, you may not read a whole chapter of your book. Select a passage that is good enough to stand alone. You don't want to spend half of your 15 minutes explaining who all these characters are, who you're eventually going to get to. And what I do, I have my books all marked up with different length reading selections, because at some open mics, you only get 5 minutes. So if you're a prose writer, what the heck can you read in 5 minutes that will have an impact? So I select a passage that I think, has some impact. And then I line out, like if there's reference to characters who aren't important for this passage, I don't read that part. So I kind of craft the piece and then I time myself and I read it aloud over and over again to make sure that it works.
Say that again.
You read it over and over to yourself, timing it. So, because I have also been the timer at open mics where I've had to cut people off. because it
The
never
hook.
occurred to them they needed to know how much they could read in 5 minutes. So yeah, so you want to read with expression. There are a lot of, this is a pet peeve of mine, a lot of poets, and I don't understand this at all, who read deadpan.
Oh,
They read with no expression whatsoever. And poetry is hard enough to get when you're only hearing it once. When there's no life behind the reading, I don't understand that.
yeah. 98% of communication is like body language and tone of voice. So if
Yeah,
you're just reading, they're getting
yeah,
2%,
yeah.
and it's very difficult to retain.
So
Uh,
I love it when I'm doing a reading and people laugh. That is my high.
awesome. Awesome. That's brilliant advice. And the repeating and rehearsing, I've done a lot of things over the years and I've been teased for it. I mean, in sale, it's a lot of it's the same way. If you're going to say something, we're all role play it. And like role playing, everyone gets embarrassed and they want to do role playing, but to practice it over and over and over, like it's the only way it's going to be any good. Nobody just fell out of bed and was a natural. That's why I
Right.
wanted you to say that again, because sometimes I felt guilty because I want to be sincere. I want to be authentic. And
Yeah.
but for me, if I go out there and screw it up, well, that's not authentic either, because oh hey, I just winged it, or
Yeah.
I did a blind page and just read it deadpan. I guess I didn't want to seem like a jerk or whatever. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
I love the practice, and the subtitle of mine is the practice of being a past. So I love anything that involves practicing something to master it. And you're not mastering it just for yourself, you're mastering it for whoever you're sharing with it. Like honor your audience that you're there to bring your gift. And so
Yeah.
I love that you
And
said
I will
that.
tell you, from going to a lot of open mics, a mediocre piece of writing, well delivered, is more effective than a brilliant piece of writing, badly delivered.
Yeah. I've heard there's a difference between a best writing author and a best selling author. It's like the
Oh
best
yeah.
writing
Oh,
author doesn't sell more books.
the
It,
whole best-selling thing is, well, it's kind of beyond my understanding, but I have read articles about what you should do on All you have to do to call yourself a bestseller is like on one particular day to sell more books than anybody else in your category or something. And so people do all kinds of stuff, lowering the price to nothing, doing all kinds of ways to get a whole bunch of people to buy their book on the same day so they can then put bestseller next to their name. And I think that's um, dishonest, to say
yeah.
the least.
Yeah. So I love that you said that, because I am going to do a bestseller campaign. It is, I will admit, it doesn't have to do with the quality of the writing. I do think in mine it's going to have to do with the quality of the network, because and my passion is for the people who know me already or within my group, or people who know me, but what do you think is the best way to market? I mean, you have several, I only have three here, but I think I read there's five. Do you have six, five or six?
Five, five.
Five. So what is I didn't even want my book to be available on Amazon, because like one of my books is about my values, my vision for the community, everything. I don't think Amazon has, but it's not like there's 300 retailers and you can do 299 and not have Amazon on that list. That's being a moron too. So what are well, speak more about Jessel. I mean, I think to me that sounds one of the more beautiful, honorable, holistic is the word I like to use, ways of marketing, is actually show up and read something and have it
Right.
more.
Yeah, no, and Jessel gives prominent visibility to the authors who read there. So I think I told you, she has a bookshelf where all five of my books are sitting there facing out. That would not be the case in any bookstore on the planet. If my book was in a bookstore, all you'd get to see would be the spine.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, going out and reading in public, that's a great way to let people know your book is there. That doesn't mean, however, they're going to buy it.
Yeah.
Some people think that if they put their book on Amazon overnight, thousands of people will find it and buy it. Does not happen that way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I pay Amazon for advertising,
Hmm.
and I monitor it daily to make sure I'm not spending more than I'm making. There are occasional months where I do spend more than I make, and I'm not getting rich on it. I think this in December, which is usually my best month, I've sold 29 books, which is not great, but I'll make about $100 on my December sales.
Uh-huh.
Amazon is very carefully configured so that they make money. Um, the people I have heard speak about marketing who do the best are the ones who are every time they do an event, they're getting people's email addresses so that they can have a letter that they send regularly. I have never had any interest in. I have an email list that's got maybe 250 names on it, and I send something once a year. So that shows you what my marketing skills are. What else do they do? The people who are really good at marketing, they're always blowing their own horn. Um, which does not, I love talking about my writing, but I'm not going to tell you this is the greatest thing since, whatever. I mean, if you're interested in dogs, you like my dog book. If you're an old person, you'll probably get a few laughs out of my book about aging. But I would rather write than market, and that's my experience with most of the writers that I know. And you can pay somebody a lot of money to do the marketing for you. I've had some offers made to me to do that, but I'm not looking. If I were 30 years old and looking to make a living as a writer, maybe it would be different. But I'm not. I'm just happy when somebody reads my book.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm not the marketing guru for sure.
Awesome. Well, how about you've given us some great, and I think showing it for me, I'm going to go to industry events, industry conferences, things that I've been involved or already have a network of people who know me. And then this book is going to be something that it's kind of a part of my personal passions of my own, holistic way of thinking and solving problems but I'm like you. My goal is just get it in someone's hands that says, hey, I'm going to do something with this information. I'm going to create something. I'm going to start. So I just want to be a spark. That's I hope the book is a spark.
So I just want to add a caveat that you have, well, I guess anybody who's selling anything knows this. You have to be careful not to put out money that isn't going to come back to you. I once went, now this is after the dog book. I went to a conference in Nashville for pet bloggers,
Uh-huh.
thinking, oh, there's going to be a bunch of people, who write about their animals. Perfect place to make a splash, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it was totally insane. Did I sell any books as a result of that? Maybe one or two. So,
Wow.
I mean, I traveled across the country. I paid for a hotel. I paid for the conference. I did all of that. And the financial gain was a minus. So, and sometimes like you could buy a booth at the farmer's market. You could rent a spot and set up a table to sell your books. But are you going to sell enough books to make up for what you paid for to be there? So that I just want to caution people, don't be overly optimistic about how many people are going to buy your book. Even if they look at it and they think it's great, that doesn't mean they're going to shell out the money.
Yeah. And so I was just going to ask you, what's a big pitfall or mistake that you learned a lot from that you could share with other authors? That's a good one. Uh,
Well, I will tell you one really awful thing that happened. I do not do my own formatting of my books. I always pay somebody to do that because I don't trust myself. I mean, plenty of people do it themselves, but I don't trust myself to have it in the right format and get it up on Amazon, so it's okay. So with the first book, um, and after you have your draft up there, and then you have to look at it and approve it, and there's always little things you want to tweak. And I still remember the way this happened was I had not given credit to the person who took the photo of me on the back cover. So I went to my formatter and said, we need to add this credit to this. So he went ahead and did it. And then I guess he sent me a new draft. And I didn't look at it very carefully. I figured, well, he only made the one little change. So he uploaded it onto Amazon, and I bought a whole bunch of copies. And a relative of mine wanted 50 copies of my book. So I had Amazon send her 50 copies. And then somebody, and of course, when you're selling it on Amazon, you don't know who the people are who are buying it. If so there's a problem, you'd have no way to tell them. Some friend of mine who bought the book said, the book ends in kind of a strange way.
Oh, no.
Said what? Because I had worked really hard on this very sweet ending of the book where the dog says, we'll be together forever. And I thought, what? So I picked up one of those books from that batch. The last 10 pages had somehow been dropped out. So
no.
the person who had done the upload for me, replaced all those books, so financially it was, but, my cousin who had 50 copies, I had to send her another 50 copies. And God only knows how many other people bought it and thought, what is wrong with this book? So my caution would be, no matter who is doing the technical stuff, make sure you check everything over and over and over again. And now every time I order books, I get, you order author copies from Amazon so I can sell them myself. I look at the book to make sure everything is there that's supposed to be.
Wow, that is a brilliant one. And that you kind of just described me. So it's like one of my things is how do I protect myself from myself? I'm the
Yeah.
person who will I've looked at 100 times. We made one quick change, and I'll look at that quick change and then just approve everything else. And you're saying, don't do it.
Right.
That's wow. That's a great pitfall to be aware of. Double check. And you said something else in there. Oh, about the credit. Yeah. And I wasn't even thinking. I have a headshot that I did. It was done at a industry conference. I don't even know if I would know who to give the credit for that picture other than I took it in Chicago at an industry con or Atlanta, I think. But um, interesting. And we are paying somebody to format it, do all the ISBN numbers. So do you do so you pay somebody to do that every time? Yeah.
Well, I have purchased my own ISBN numbers.
Uh-huh.
And for people who want to publish on Amazon, you don't have to have your own ISBN if you're doing Amazon, but then it would be clear to anybody who knows what they're doing when they open the book that Amazon is the publisher, because then it's got their imprint on it.
Uh-huh.
So I always publish, and you can buy 10 of them at a time and just hold on to them forever. So I do some of that, and then I give that information to my formatter. Um, so different people probably do it different ways, but I was going to tell you another story, and now I left my head about it. Oh yeah, so I once wrote a feature for the Napa Valley Register about a wonderful lavender farm here in Napa. And if it comes to me, I'll tell you the name of it because they're truly awesome. They're in Carneros, but the lovely family gave me a photo to use with the article. And I said, so this is your picture, right? And they said, yeah. So I gave the photo to the Register, and the Register published the photo with my article. And the photographer, had a conniption fit because I guess the family didn't realize that if they were going to use that the photographer needed to be credited. So that was really interesting.
Do you need to ask their permission or just print that it's their photograph? It's an
I
interesting
think
question.
you need to ask their permission, and
Yeah.
then they will either say, sure, just give me credit, or sure, but I'm going to charge you $50 or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting. Those are great. And that's what we have somebody else work. That's one of the reasons I have somebody else working on it because I'm the guy who's going to read the part I changed just like you did and not look at everything. So it's nice. But you're saying even with another set of eyes, be careful, author beware.
Yeah, because let's put it this way. You as the author are more invested in that product than anybody you hire to work on it. So you have got to make sure that you're happy with it.
So I think I read that article. Was that when Carrie Ruel was the editor, or was it more recent than Carrie?
No, Carrie was Napa Valley Life. This was for the Register.
Oh, this is Register, because you've published in Napa Valley Life too, right?
Uh, yeah, not recently, but it was when Carrie was in charge. Yeah, I actually, one of my favorite pieces I did for Napa Valley Life was who makes the best rotisserie chicken in Napa? And I got Carrie to pay for me to go buy like 5 different chickens at different places. And I had my friends over and we rated the chickens. That was, I'd love to do more of that. That was a lot of fun.
She's a huge who. She moved to the East Coast when she sold
Yeah.
the magazine, and I try to stay in touch with Carrie, but it's like once I've invited her. I'm going to mention her on this podcast. I'm going to tag her on this podcast when I post it on LinkedIn. And are you on LinkedIn? I didn't. Did we connect on LinkedIn? I forget. I usually ask.
I am on LinkedIn, but I pay almost no attention to it.
Okay.
I should use it for marketing, and I don't.
So try. So I'm going to post this on LinkedIn. It's one of the only ways that I market it,
Okay.
and it's on every podcast platform. So Spotify. If you know somebody who listens to Spotify or iTunes or anywhere you get your podcasts, you can say the Dow Pizza Podcast and Lenore Hirsch, and yours is going to pull up on any podcast.
So you're saying that somebody could go to LinkedIn to what, your LinkedIn page to get this podcast?
Yeah, or our website is the other place, our
Okay.
specialracks.com. And that's where the special racks, so the Spotify and iTunes, at least I haven't looked at all of them. They don't have the show notes like I have with the details. Like I'm going to have a link to, it'll probably be Jessel, even if it's on LinkedIn, or I'll just find ways to link all the kind of giving credit anyone we brought up. But it's also a
Yeah, that's
resource if
great.
somebody,
That's great.
because I wanted to be a resource of, and I'm hoping because I know a lot of people just being in business. I know a lot of people who should be writing a book or who want to
Yeah.
or dreamed of it. So that's another one of my inspirations is say, uh, do it. If you thought about doing it, do it. If you were thinking, or even like you said, a lot of people are writing, but they're not publishing. One of my biggest fears of publishing too was being misunderstood. I'm like, this is going to be misunderstood. I'm talking about things, and uh, I had to get over that. That was a block. It was a fear. And then you saying like, it is going to happen. It just is. And nothing I do is going to avoid it. But the critique sessions, I think, are good practice for that.
Yeah. Because that way you'll know if your average reader is going to not get what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So many great advice for writers. So I like to end with a question about technology. Are you using any technology this year or in the last couple of years that you weren't using uh, before?
Well, I've kind of avoided AI, although I guess it's embedded in a lot of things that I do. I think my one experience where I was aware of it was I was doing a post on Nextdoor to either look for a service person or sell something, I don't know what, and I got the little question, "Would you like AI to improve this?" And I said, "Okay," and it did. So that's really interesting. But technology, no, to tell you the truth, and maybe it's my age, the technology makes me crazy. I currently, right now, my 2 Echo Dots don't work. And when I try to get them to work, I get this message from Alexa that they're disconnected from Wi-Fi and I need to go to the Alexa app and reconnect. And I haven't been, I go to the Alexa app and it just tells me, anyway, yeah, no, I am not big on technology.
I always love to ask. Chat GPT AI is one of the things that's come up recently. I asked somebody who was a psychologist for I don't know 30 or something year long career in psychology. I asked her, and she said Chat GPT is something that she's never used, and using it Grammarly, and so it's a similar thing. I have Grammarly hooked up to my AOL or my special rep. Both my emails have Grammarly hooked up because it's interesting. If it gives you, it's funny when you said that they want to give you suggestions where you're thinking like, well, I'm Lenore Hirsch. I've written 5 books. Like, should I be giving you something now to do? But I do. when I read it, because you write things that's in your head, you don't know, like a lot of times I'm writing things down and you can think faster than you can write. So you write it
Yeah.
down and you get the suggestion from Grammarly, like, oh, you know what? I am going to change
But
that.
let me tell you one more thing, and maybe this applies more to fiction than to nonfiction. Um, for one of my books, I don't think I paid her. I was looking for an editor to help me with the book. And so I had this particular price. She had said, this person I knew said, well, send me a chapter. So I sent her a chapter or two of the book, and she edited it and sent it back to me. And when I read what she had done with it, it read great. There were definitely some ways it was improved, but it no longer sounded like me. And there was even some subtle, some word I had used that had a little bit of sarcasm in it that she had changed. And it was like, you're a great editor, but this is my book. It has to sound like me. So be careful with AI that it doesn't change your voice or your personality, because that's a really important part of your writing.
Great. That is great advice. I think that is a great place to end. This has been so awesome, Lenore. Thank you.
I
I'm
can't
so
believe
glad we
it's been
met.
an hour.
What's that? It is. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
55 minutes. Yeah, and I want to respect your time. And I'm really glad we met at the Norman
And me
Rose Tavern.
too.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to reading some of your pages. Send them over.
Okay. I'll send over. I'll send the full manuscript if you want. Do you want a chapter, an inner chapter?
Whatever you want to do, I'll be happy to. We'll see how much I read, but I'd be happy to read it and give you my 2 cents.
That is so awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure to meet
Maybe I'll
you.
see you again in Norman Rose.
Yeah, I think I had three. What's the drink I love to get there? It's the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, it was a what is
I
that
can't
drink
think of
called?
the word right now.
It's got cream and
Yeah, Kahlua and
coffee
vodka
liquor,
and cream.
Kahlua. Yeah,
Why can't I think of the name of it?
I don't know.
White Russian. White Russian.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, three White Russians, and I'm glad we got to have a conversation where I haven't had any White Russians. Because although that was a great night, it was fun. I just finished my Christmas shopping. I just turned in my manuscript. So really pleasure.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a happy new year.
Thanks for listening to the Tao of Pizza podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.